Why does this file say my son was cut open at 10:42? Noah Brooks asked, and the billing room at St. Aurelia Medical Center seemed to lose its air. His 10-year-old son, Ben, stood beside him in a blue hospital wristband, pointing at a misdelivered file marked surgery completed, $80,000. Tanya Rusk reached across the counter to snatch it back. That file wasn't meant for you,
Ben whispered. Dad.
I was at school that day. 3 hours earlier, Noah had been under the hood of a delivery van at the garage, his denim jacket dark at the elbows with oil, his hands moving carefully because one cracked bolt could turn a small job into a lost afternoon. His old phone buzzed on the metal workbench beside a dented silver toolbox. Ben's follow-up appointment. Nothing serious, the nurse had said last week. Just paperwork, a checkup, and a new insurance note so the school could keep his emergency form updated. Noah wiped his palms on a rag that never came clean, folded his small ledger shut, and counted the cash in his pocket without letting Ben see. Rent had taken one half. Groceries had taken most of the other. But Ben was waiting by the garage door with his backpack on, science fair certificate tucked inside like treasure, trying to look patient because he knew his father hated being late. You ready, kid? Noah asked.
Ben nodded.
Do I still have to wear the hospital bracelet? Until they say you can take it off. Noah looked at the blue plastic band around his son's wrist, the barcode black and sharp under the fluorescent light. It looked harmless, the kind of thing hospitals printed by the hundreds and forgot. At St. Aurelia, the lobby smelled like floor cleaner, coffee, and something cold from the vents. People sat in rows beneath posters that said patient first, always. Noah signed where the receptionist pointed, answered the same questions twice, and watched Ben swing his feet under the chair while a printer coughed somewhere behind the glass. The checkup itself lasted less than 15 minutes. A nurse listened to Ben's breathing, asked if he had pain, smiled when Ben said no, and sent them back toward billing with a folder Noah assumed would be another form to file at home. At the counter, Tanya Rusk wore a neat navy blazer and the kind of polite smile that had edges. She clicked through the screen, paused, then printed a paper so slowly that Noah heard each mechanical drag of the machine. When she laid it down, the number at the bottom did not look real. $80,000. Noah blinked once. Pediatric emergency surgery. Completed. His first thought was that some decimal had landed in the wrong place. His second thought was Ben, standing close enough to read his father's face. There's a mistake, Noah said quietly. Tanya's smile did not move. Mr. Brooks, the account reflects a completed surgical balance. Ben, bored and nervous, had opened the wrong envelope because his name was on it. His small finger stopped on the page. Noah saw the words before he understood them. Surgery completed. 10:42 a.m. The room narrowed to the counter, the paper, the blue wristband, and Tanya's hand reaching too fast. Near the record's door, an older woman in a green cardigan stopped with a file cart half-turned, her keys silent in her hand. Noah did not raise his voice. He placed one palm over the page and said, "Show me the consent form with my signature." Tanya glanced not at her screen, but up toward the black dome camera above them. Then Ben lifted his wrist beside the file, and Noah saw the small barcode printed on the blue band matched the code beside the surgery charge. The matching barcode sat between Noah's eyes like a splinter he could not blink away. On Ben's wrist, the black lines were thin and ordinary. On the hospital page, the same lines had become an $80,000 surgery. For a few seconds, Noah did not move, and neither did Tanya Rusk. The printer behind her clicked once, then fell silent, as if even the machine had decided to wait. "That is hospital property," Tanya said. "It has my son's name on it. You were not authorized to open that envelope." Noah kept his palm over the page, not hard, not threatening, just firm enough to keep the truth from disappearing back across the counter. The fluorescent lights washed the room in a pale blue shine, catching the oil still tucked beneath his fingernails and the worn seam on his denim jacket. Tanya's eyes touched those details quickly, the way people looked at a man and decided how far they could push him. Behind Noah, a woman holding a toddler shifted away. Someone whispered, That's a lot of money. Someone else murmured. Some people just don't pay. Ben heard it. Noah felt his son's shoulder shrink under his hand. He lowered his voice so only Ben could hear. Look at me, not at them. Ben lifted his face. His eyes were wet, but he did not cry. Tanya reached for the file again, this time with a more professional smile, the kind that belonged on brochures about patient care. Mr. Brooks, I understand medical bills can be confusing, especially when the terminology is unfamiliar, but arguing at the billing desk will not change the account status. Noah slowly slid his phone closer to the paper and took one photograph before her fingers covered the corner. The tiny camera sound seemed louder than it should have been. Tanya's jaw tightened, then smoothed. She pressed a button on her keyboard and turned her monitor slightly away. You cannot record or photograph protected hospital documents without permission. Then give me the consent form. This was processed under emergency authorization. My son was never in surgery. The chart says otherwise. 2 security guards near the lobby doors looked over, not rushing, not touching anything, just making themselves visible. That was all it took. The room understood the message. A working father in an oil-stained jacket had become the problem, and the woman behind the glass had become the rule. Tanya pulled a red stamp from the drawer. The rubber base hit the pad with a wet, sticky sound. Then she pressed it against Noah's billing sheet. Collection hold. The red letters bled a little into the paper fibers. Ben stared at them as if they were a grade he had failed. What does that mean? He asked. Tanya answered Noah, not the child. It means the account is now flagged until payment arrangements are made or the dispute is reviewed. If the balance remains unresolved, it may affect insurance processing and future services. He has asthma medication on that insurance, Noah said. Then I would advise you to cooperate with the review process. Her voice stayed soft. That made it worse. She was not yelling. She was not insulting him with street words. She was wrapping the threat in clean grammar and hospital policy. Noah opened his small ledger on the counter. The pages were bent from being carried in his back pocket. Rent, groceries, school lunch, inhaler refill, gas for the truck. Every line was written in pencil, because pencil allowed a man to adjust when life moved the numbers on him. He wrote Tanya Rusk, 2:17 p.m., collection hold, emergency authorization, no consent form shown. Tanya watched him write, and for the first time her polite expression cracked into irritation. Mr. Brooks, refusing responsibility will not erase a hospital bill. The words traveled. A man near the vending machines looked over. A mother in scrubs glanced at Noah's jacket, then at Ben, then away like she did not want to get involved. Ben tugged his sleeve down over the blue wristband, trying to hide it, trying to make his own name less visible. Noah saw the movement and felt something inside him bend, but not break. He closed the ledger gently. Poor doesn't mean I stopped being his father. Tanya inhaled through her nose. No one said you were poor, but her eyes had already said it. Her hands had said it when they pulled the file away. The guards had said it by moving closer before Noah ever raised his voice. The stamp had said it in red. Near the record's door, Marisol Grant had stopped beside a gray file cart. She was small, silver-haired, wrapped in a green cardigan, one hand resting on a ring of keys. She did not step forward. She did not rescue him. Her face gave away almost nothing, except for one tiny pause when Tanya said emergency authorization. Marisol looked at the blue wristband hiding under Ben's sleeve, then at the red stamp, then at Tanya's eyes flicking again toward the black dome camera above the counter. Tanya turned back to her screen. Your online portal will be temporarily restricted until the balance issue is addressed. Noah's phone buzzed in his pocket before she finished the sentence. He took it out and saw the notification from Ben's insurance portal. Coverage review pending due to unresolved surgical balance. The words were small, blue, and devastating. Ben leaned close enough to read them, and Noah turned the phone face down, not to hide the truth, but to give his son one more breath before fear entered the room completely. We're done here for now, Tanya said. You'll receive instructions by mail. Noah gathered the bill, his ledger, and the one photograph he had managed to take. He did not curse. He did not threaten. He guided Ben away from the counter with one hand at the center of his back. As they passed the file cart, Marisol's keys made the smallest sound against the metal handle, and Noah noticed her staring not at the $80,000 total, but at the phrase printed beneath it in small type. Outpatient visit converted to emergency surgical encounter. Why would a simple checkup need to be converted at all? Why would a simple checkup need to be converted at all? The question stayed with Noah as he guided Ben away from the billing counter, through the automatic doors that opened with a soft sigh, and down the hall where the hospital smell changed from disinfectant to damp concrete. The elevator to the parking level hummed under their feet. Ben stood close, his sleeve still pulled over the blue wristband like he could hide the lie by hiding the plastic. Noah wanted to tear it off and throw it into the nearest trash can. Instead, he touched the edge of it with 2 fingers and said, "Leave it on for now, okay?" Ben looked up. Why? Noah swallowed the answer he did not want to give a child. Because something about it had scared a grown woman behind a glass counter. Because the barcode on that cheap blue band had just followed them into an $80,000 surgery that never happened. Because sometimes the smallest thing in the room was the only thing telling the truth. Because we don't throw away things we don't understand yet, Noah said. The parking garage was colder than the lobby. A draft moved through the concrete columns, carrying the smell of gasoline, rainwater, and old tires. Fluorescent lights buzzed above them, some bright, some trembling like they were tired of staying awake. Noah checked his phone again. The insurance message was still there, blue and clean and cruel. Coverage review pending due to unresolved surgical balance. He turned the screen dark before Ben could read it again. His ledger was tucked under his arm, the $80,000 bill folded inside it like a blade. He was already late for his afternoon shift. Mr. Alvarez at the garage had warned him twice that missing hours meant missed pay, and missed pay meant rent would lean harder on the first of the month. Noah pictured the envelope on top of the refrigerator, the one marked landlord in pencil. Then he pictured Ben's inhaler on the kitchen shelf, light as plastic, heavy as responsibility. "Dad," Ben said, "are they going to stop my medicine?" Noah stopped walking, not because he had a good answer, but because his son deserved his face, not his back. He crouched until they were eye level. The concrete pressed cold through one knee of his jeans. "I'm going to handle the papers," he said. "Your job is to stay 10, eat dinner, and tell me if your chest feels tight." Ben tried to smile. It was too small to last. A sharp clicking sound came from the next row of cars. Metal on concrete. Then a soft, frustrated voice. "Come on, not today." Noah turned. Near a gray sedan with a cracked taillight, Marisol Grant stood with one hand on the hood and the other holding a ring of keys so full it looked like it belonged to an old building instead of one woman. Her green cardigan was buttoned wrong at the top, and a pharmacy bag hung from her wrist. A file box sat on the passenger seat, its lid slightly open, showing blue folders packed tight inside. On the ground near her shoe lay a red pen, the cap cracked, the kind of pen a person kept not because it was nice but because it had been with them too long to throw away. Noah recognized her from the record's door. She recognized him too, but neither of them said it at first. She turned the key again. The sedan answered with one tired click and nothing else. Noah looked toward the exit ramp, then at his phone, then at Ben. He had every reason to keep walking. Nobody in that garage would have blamed him. He had just been called irresponsible in front of strangers. His son's insurance had been put in danger. He was late, angry, and scared in a way that made his hands want to close into fists. But the woman's shoulders fell in a familiar way, the way people looked when one more small thing became too much. Noah set his ledger on the hood of his own truck. "Ben, sit on that step where I can see you." Ben obeyed, backpack in his lap, watching. Noah walked over. "Battery?" he asked. Marisol looked embarrassed before she looked relieved. "I think so. It's old." "Most things are old before they quit," Noah said. "Doesn't mean they're done." He opened the sedan hood and leaned in. The engine bay smelled of dust, warm rubber, and corrosion. His fingers found the loose terminal before his eyes did. White powder clung around the metal like salt. He went back to his truck, pulled out the dented silver toolbox, and came back with a wrench, a wire brush, and a rag. His movements were quiet and practiced. Loosen, clean, tighten, check the ground wire. Listen, try again. Marisol stood beside him, holding her keys with both hands now. You don't have to do this, she said. I know. You're already having a hard day. Noah wiped the terminal clean until the metal showed. That doesn't mean yours has to get worse. From the elevator bay, Tanya's voice drifted faintly through the open stairwell. She was speaking to someone on the phone, low but clipped. He's still on site. Yes, the father. No, he doesn't have the whole file. Noah's hand paused for only half a second. He did not look up. He tightened the last bolt and nodded toward Marisol. Try it. The sedan coughed, caught, and finally turned over. The engine shook like an old dog waking up, then settled. Marisol pressed one hand to her chest. Thank God. She reached into her purse. Noah stepped back. Keep it. At least for your time. Keep it for the medicine. Her fingers closed around the pharmacy bag. For the first time, her face changed. Not into trust, not yet, but into attention. She looked at Noah's jacket, at the oil on his hands, at Ben sitting on the step with one sleeve pulled over the blue wristband, then at the folded hospital bill sticking out of the ledger on Noah's hood. Her eyes did not go to the $80,000 total. They moved lower to the smaller line beneath the charge. Outpatient visit converted to emergency surgical encounter. Marisol's keys went still. They used emergency authorization, didn't they? Noah looked at her. The garage lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere above them, a door slammed shut. You heard that at the counter, he said. Marisol picked up the cracked red pen from the concrete and slid it into her cardigan pocket. No, she said softly. I heard it years before you walked in. Then her gaze dropped to Ben's hidden wristband, and Noah understood that the car he had stopped to fix was not the only thing in that garage with a loose connection. Marisol's last words followed Noah out of the parking garage louder than the engine of her old sedan. I heard it years before you walked in. She had not explained herself. She had not handed him a miracle, a name, or a way out. She had only watched Ben's hidden blue wristband as if it were a match left beside gasoline, then told Noah one thing before driving away. Do not throw that band away. By the time Noah and Ben reached home, the sky over their apartment complex had turned the color of old metal. The hallway smelled like someone frying onions 2 doors down, mixed with the dusty heat from the wall vents. Noah unlocked the door with one hand and kept the other lightly on Ben's shoulder, the way he had done since the billing counter, as if touch alone could keep the boy from drifting into fear. The apartment was small, clean, and tired. A stack of folded laundry sat on one end of the couch. Ben's science fair ribbon hung from a thumbtack near the kitchen, blue against beige paint. On the refrigerator, under a magnet shaped like a wrench, was the rent envelope Noah had marked in pencil. He looked at it only once. Then he set everything on the kitchen table. The $80,000 bill, his ledger, the one photo he had managed to take of the wrong file, Ben's school certificate, the blue wristband still around Ben's wrist. For a long moment, he just stood there under the yellow kitchen light, looking at the objects like parts of an engine laid out after a breakdown. Ben climbed into his chair and pulled the sleeve back from the wristband. Am I in trouble because I opened it? Noah looked up fast. No. She said it wasn't meant for us. That doesn't make it your fault. But it had my name. Noah sat across from him. The chair gave a small wooden creak. Sometimes grown-ups put a child's name on something and still don't tell the truth. Ben stared at the table. He was 10, old enough to understand danger, young enough to think adults were supposed to stop it. Noah reached for the wristband, then stopped. Can I look at it? Ben nodded and held out his arm. Noah turned the band gently, careful not to pull the plastic against his son's skin. The barcode was smudged at one edge where Ben had rubbed it during the appointment. Beneath it, in tiny black print, was the encounter number. Noah wrote it in his ledger. He did not know hospital systems, not really. He knew engines, invoices, work orders, the way one wrong number on a parts label could send a mechanic chasing the wrong problem for hours. So he treated the paper like a machine, one piece at a time. Tell me about school today, he said.
Ben blinked.
All of it. The part around 10:30. Ben's shoulders loosened a little. Memory was safer than hospital bills. Ms. Carver said I had to go third because Jaden's volcano cracked. What time? I don't know exact. Close is fine. Maybe 10:30. I read my board. Then she asked me about the battery. Then everybody clapped. Then Principal Harris came in after the announcements and gave certificates. Noah picked up Ben's certificate. The corner had a thumbprint of dried frosting, pinkish red. Cupcake. Ben looked surprised. Strawberry. After the pictures. Pictures. Ms. Carver took one with the class tablet. She said she'd put it in the parent folder. Noah wrote that down. Class tablet. Photo. Certificate. Principal Harris. He was not building a case because he wanted to fight. He was building a path because the hospital had already started closing doors. His old phone buzzed against the table, making both of them jump. Unknown number. Noah answered without speaking first. A woman's voice came, through low and careful. Mr. Brooks. Who is this? Marisol. From the garage. Noah glanced at Ben, then turned the phone slightly away. How did you get this number? You wrote your garage number on the back of that receipt when you fixed my car. The owner gave me your cell because I said it was about the repair. She paused. I should not be calling you. Then why are you? Another pause. In the background he heard a television, very soft, and the faint scrape of a drawer opening. Because a real surgery leaves more than a bill. It leaves consent. An anesthesia record. A room log. Staff signatures. Supply counts. If they only showed you charges, ask why. Noah closed his eyes for half a second. Not relief. Not yet. Just air. Do you believe me? He asked. Marisol did not answer quickly, and Noah respected her more for that. I believe paper can lie when people make it lie, she said. And I believe your boy was afraid in a way children do not fake. But belief is not enough. Keep the wristband. Keep the bill. Get the school record in writing. Why won't the portal let me in? What do you mean? Noah opened the hospital portal on his phone. The screen loaded, spun, then showed the same message from earlier. Access temporarily restricted. It says access restricted. Marisol went quiet so long he thought the call had dropped. Do not keep trying tonight, she said. Repeated failed access gives them a reason to say the account was locked for security. Them? Good night, Mr. Brooks. The call ended. Ben was watching him. Was that the lady with the car? Noah nodded. Is she going to help? Noah looked at the wristband, then at the bill, then at the photo on his phone. She told us what to ask for. Ben was silent for a few seconds. Then he pointed at the photo of the file. Dad, that number looks like my bracelet number. But this part is different. Noah leaned closer. On the top of the file, the encounter number matched the wristband. But under the surgical charge, the same number appeared again with 3 extra digits added at the end, like a tail attached after the fact. Noah placed the wristband under the kitchen light and turned the bill beside it. Until the 2 codes lined up. The checkup number had not been replaced. It had been extended. And whatever those 3 extra digits meant, someone had added them after Ben walked out of the exam room. The 3 extra digits stayed in Noah's mind all night like a sound under the floorboards. He woke before the alarm, not because he had slept enough, but because worry had kept one hand on his shoulder until morning. On the kitchen table, under the weak gray light coming through the blinds, the blue wristband rested inside a clear sandwich bag. Beside it lay the $80,000 bill, Ben's science certificate, Noah's ledger, and a handwritten list of questions in pencil. Consent form, anesthesia record, room log, staff signatures, supply count. Ben came out in his school hoodie, hair still flattened on one side, and looked at the papers without touching them. Are we going back there? He asked. Noah folded the ledger and slid it into his jacket pocket. I am. You're going to school first. But it's my name. Noah stopped tying his boot. That sentence hurt more than Ben knew. I know, he said. And because it's your name, I'm going to be careful with it. He drove Ben to school in silence, broken only by the old truck heater clicking behind the dashboard. At the curb, Ben hesitated before getting out. He reached into his backpack and handed Noah the science certificate, now protected in a folder with bent corners. Ms. Carver said she can print the real time from the class tablet after announcements. Noah took it like it weighed more than paper. Thank you, kid. Ben looked at his father's oil-stained sleeve, then at the hospital bill tucked in the ledger. Don't let them call you that again. Noah knew what he meant. Deadbeat. Irresponsible. A father trying to get out of paying. He leaned across the seat and straightened Ben's hoodie zipper. People can call me what they want. We only answer to what's true. By 9:18, Noah was back inside St. Aurelia, where the lobby lights were too bright and the floor had been polished until every shoe squeaked like it was apologizing. The billing counter was busy, but Tanya saw him before he reached the line. Her smile appeared, quickly, practiced, and thin. Mr. Brooks, we've arranged for someone to speak with you privately. I asked for the consent form. This will be better. Better for who? Tanya did not answer. She led him past the counter into a smaller room with a round table, 2 chairs, a box of tissues, and a framed poster about financial compassion. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and printer toner. A young man in a gray suit was already inside with a folder open in front of him. He introduced himself as Mr. Vale's administrative liaison, careful not to say Marcus Vale would be coming. We understand yesterday was stressful, he said. St. Aurelia wants to resolve this without unnecessary escalation. Noah remained standing. Was my son in surgery? The man blinked once. Medical coding can be complex. Was my son in surgery? What we can offer today is a courtesy adjustment. He turned a page. Your balance can be reduced from $80,000 to $4,000. Provided the dispute is closed and you sign this acknowledgement that the account has been reviewed to your satisfaction. For a moment, the room went quiet except for the air vent breathing above them. $4,000 was still impossible, but it was small enough to sound like mercy to a tired man. It was small enough to tempt a father who needed his son's insurance open again. Noah looked at the paper. Then he looked at the empty signature line. You don't have the consent form, he said. The liaison's smile tightened. This is a generous adjustment. A discount on a lie is still a lie. The pen in the man's hand stopped tapping. Outside the door, someone was crying. Not loudly, not theatrically. Just the broken, embarrassed sound of a person trying not to fall apart in a public hallway. Noah turned. Through the narrow glass panel, he saw a woman in a faded red coat kneeling beside a little girl in a wheelchair. The child had one pink sneaker untied, and the front caster of the chair was twisted sideways, jammed against the metal footrest. Tanya stood over them holding a clipboard. Ma'am, if the account is flagged, the insurance cannot process additional services until review. She didn't have anesthesia, the woman said. She went in for imaging. The chart indicates otherwise. Noah opened the door before he realized he had moved. The hallway carried the smell of coffee, wet coats, and disinfectant. Tanya looked irritated when she saw him. Mr. Brooks, please return to the room. Noah crouched near the wheelchair, keeping his hands visible. May I? He asked the woman, not Tanya. The woman looked confused. What? The wheel. It stuck. The little girl wiped her nose with her sleeve and nodded. Noah pulled the small screwdriver from his jacket pocket, the one he carried out of habit, and loosened the bent bracket just enough to free the caster. He did not make a show of it. He did not tell anyone he was a mechanic. He simply turned the screw, checked the spin, and moved back. The wheel rolled straight. The little girl whispered, "Thank you." Noah nodded. "You're welcome." Tanya's face held its polite shape, but her eyes had gone hard. This area is not for maintenance work. It is when a child can't move, Noah said. The woman in the red coat stood slowly. Are you disputing surgery too? Noah did not answer right away. He had learned that fear made people listen to the wrong voice. "What's your daughter's name?" "Maya."
I'm Lila.
Her hand trembled around the paper. Noah saw the phrase before Tanya pulled it back. Completed under emergency authorization. Under it, in the approval line, were 2 letters followed by a period, MV. The hallway seemed to narrow the same way the billing room had yesterday. Noah did not grab the paper. He did not accuse Tanya. He only looked at Lila and said, "Ask for the anesthesia record. Ask for the room log. Ask for the staff signatures." Tanya stepped between them, clipboard against her chest. "Mr. Brooks, please don't confuse another patient with information you don't understand." From the records door at the end of the hall, Marisol Grant appeared with a stack of blue folders against her cardigan. She did not walk toward him at first. She watched. She saw Noah choose not to use Lila's fear as a weapon. She saw him help the child before asking a question. Then she looked at Tanya's clipboard at the letters MV, and something in her face went still. "Tanya," Marisol said softly, "that file should not be in hallway review." Tanya turned too fast. "This doesn't concern records." "It does if the same authorization language is appearing on disputed accounts." The liaison from the small room stepped into the doorway. His voice stayed smooth. "Let's not make this larger than it is." That sentence changed the air. A chair stopped scraping somewhere behind them. The little girl's mother stopped crying. Even Tanya went quiet for half a beat. Noah looked from the liaison to Tanya, then to Marisol. "Who is MV?" No one answered. Marisol lowered her folders onto the nearest counter and, without looking at Noah directly, slid one loose photocopied page beneath the top sheet of his courtesy adjustment packet. It was only visible for a second before Tanya noticed. Noah saw the same phrase, the same surgical coding language, the same approval initials, and at the bottom, a claim batch number ending in the same 3 extra digits that had been added to Ben's wristband code. Tanya reached for the packet. Noah closed it calmly and held it flat against his ledger. Marisol's voice was almost too quiet to hear. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "if those 3 digits are on your son's file, then his bill did not begin at the counter. If those 3 digits were on Ben's file, then his bill had not begun at the counter." Noah heard Marisol say it, but the words did not fully land until he was back in the service hallway behind records window B, standing under a flickering fluorescent tube while the photocopied page trembled slightly in his hand. The same 3 digits were printed at the end of Lila's claim batch. The same phrase sat above them like a rubber stamp, completed under emergency authorization. The same approval initials waited beneath it. MV Noah did not ask the question loudly. He only looked at Marisol and said, "How many?" Marisol's face tightened. She was still holding the blue folders against her chest, but now they looked less like office work and more like something heavy she had carried too long. "Enough that asking got me moved downstairs," she said. "From where?" "Compliance billing." The hallway air seemed to cool around the words. A cart rattled somewhere beyond the double doors. Tanya was still near the front desk, pretending not to watch them while watching everything. Noah could feel the building trying to swallow the conversation back into procedure. He folded the photocopy into his ledger, not hiding it, just protecting it from hands that moved too quickly. "I need proof that Ben was never in that room," he said. Marisol looked toward the black dome camera at the corner of the hall, then toward the stairwell marked staff only. "A real surgery leaves tracks," she said. "If the tracks are missing, that matters. But if the room was doing something else at the same time, that matters more." She did not lead him through the main corridor. She led him through a narrow staff passage that smelled of dust, old paper, and the sharp lemon cleaner used to make tired places seem new. Noah kept his steps quiet, not because he was sneaking, but because every sound in that hallway seemed to belong to the hospital and not to him. Marisol stopped at a records terminal outside a storage room. The computer screen glowed pale against her lined face. Her fingers moved slowly at first, then faster, the way someone remembers a language they were once punished for speaking. "Operating room 3, she murmured. "The file says Ben's emergency surgery began at 10:42. Noah looked down at the page. "That's what it says." Then or 3 should have a room log, anesthesia record, tray count, scrub nurse signature, recovery transfer, waste disposal, something. She clicked. The screen loaded. Then another screen. Then a service schedule opened with small gray lines and time blocks. Marisol leaned closer. Noah saw the entry before she spoke. Or 3 maintenance request. Surgical light flicker. Technician access 10:38 a.m. Room unavailable pending repair. His breath went quiet in his chest. That room was empty, he said. Not just empty, Marisol whispered. Unavailable. The word sat between them like a locked door opening by itself. Noah's hands did not shake, but his jaw clenched until it hurt. For a second, a hot, ugly part of him wanted to walk back to the billing counter, throw the paper down in front of Tanya, and make everyone who had stared at him stare at her instead. He imagined the red collection hold stamp, Ben pulling down his sleeve, the insurance message glowing on his phone. Then he saw Lila's little girl in the wheelchair, and Ben's frightened question at the kitchen table. If they can say I had surgery, can they say I was sick with something I never had? Noah breathed once through his nose. If I show this too soon, they'll say I misunderstood it. Marisol looked at him then, really looked. Yes. So we don't use it to embarrass them. No. We use it to make them open the system. For the first time since he met her, Marisol's eyes softened with something close to respect. Not pity. Not belief handed out because he was hurt. Respect because he was angry and still choosing structure. Noah pulled out his phone and called Alvarez Garage. His boss answered on the 4th ring, irritated. Noah, you coming in or not? I need a repair invoice from St. Aurelia. Operating room 3. Yesterday morning. Light fixture issue. Technician entered around 10:38. Why? Noah looked at the service log glowing on the screen. Because somebody says my son was being operated on in a room we were repairing. The line went silent. Then Alvarez cursed under his breath, low and tired. I'll send the scan. With the timestamp. I know how invoices work. Brooks. A minute later, Noah's phone buzzed. The garage invoice came through as a PDF, the logo at the top smudged from an old scanner, the time printed clearly near the service line. Technician check-in 10:38 a.m., or 3 light flicker, room clear, no patient present. Noah did not smile. He placed the phone beside Marisol's terminal, aligning the invoice time with the hospital service log like matching 2 edges of a torn photograph. The hallway grew very still. Even the printer behind them stopped mid-cycle, its green light blinking in silence. Then another voice spoke from the doorway. That log should not be open. Noah turned. A woman in navy scrubs stood there with an ID badge clipped at her chest. Evelyn Hart, RN, Internal Review. Her expression was guarded, not unkind. She looked at Noah's jacket, his phone, the ledger under his arm, then at Marisol's open screen. Marisol, you know what they'll say if this leaves records without chain authorization. Marisol did not look away. Then authorized the chain. Evelyn's mouth tightened. I can't do that because a father is upset. Don't do it because he's upset, Marisol said. Do it because the room log says unavailable. Evelyn stepped closer. She read the entry, then the garage invoice on Noah's phone. Her hand slowly came down onto the edge of the desk. Where is the anesthesia record? Noah asked. Evelyn looked at him. That is not something I can discuss in a hallway. Does it exist? She hesitated, and that hesitation was the first honest answer anyone from the hospital had given him. I will check. She moved to the terminal beside Marisol's and entered her credentials. Noah watched without crowding her. Ben was not there. Lila's child was not there. No child needed to stand inside this part of the truth. Evelyn searched anesthesia, then perioperative nursing, then supply count. Each missing field made the air heavier. No anesthesia record for Ben Brooks.
No scrub nurse signature.
No tray count. No recovery transfer.
No post-op vitals.
Only charges. Only surgical coding. Only money pretending to be medicine. Evelyn's face changed by degrees. small enough that a careless person would have missed it. She was not convinced by Noah's pain. She was convinced by absence where records should have been. Who approved it? Noah asked. Marisol clicked into the billing trail. A digital signature appeared. Dr. Calvin Pierce, approval logged 11:16 a.m. Beneath it, financial override Marcus Vale. Evelyn frowned. Pierce wasn't on pediatric service yesterday. Where was he? Marisol asked. Evelyn opened a hospital calendar, then stopped. A public conference listing sat on the screen. Dr. Calvin Pierce, keynote speaker, 11 a.m., Downtown Medical Ethics Forum. Noah stared at the words medical ethics until they blurred. The hospital wanted him to believe his son had been in an emergency surgery at 10:42. Approved by a doctor speaking across town by 11 o'clock, billed through a room that had been empty for repair. Evelyn reached for the mouse again, but the screen flashed white. A gray box appeared in the center. User permission revoked by admin M. Vale. No one spoke. The only sound was the buzz of the fluorescent light and Noah's phone vibrating once more as the garage invoice finished downloading in full. Marisol's hand hovered over the keyboard. Frozen above keys she no longer had permission to touch. Evelyn looked toward the ceiling camera. For the first time, her guarded expression broke into fear. Noah picked up his ledger, the photocopy, the invoice, and the bagged blue wristband. He did not run to the counter. He did not shout Marcus Vale's name down the hallway. He looked at Marisol, then at Evelyn and said, "Then we do this where they cannot close the screen." Evelyn slowly nodded. Billing review. With audit present. Marisol took the cracked red pen from her pocket and circled the printed time on the garage invoice. 10:38 a.m. So hard the paper nearly tore. By then, the truth was too heavy for a back hallway and too dangerous for a private apology. The billing review was scheduled in the glass-walled conference room beside the same payment counter where Noah Brooks had been called irresponsible 2 days earlier. St. Aurelia Medical Center had tried to make it feel small. 6 chairs, 1 long table, a pitcher of water, a box of tissues, and a sign-in sheet clipped to a silver board. But the glass walls made the room impossible to hide. People in the lobby could see the silhouettes. The billing staff could see Noah walk in with his denim jacket still smelling faintly of motor oil. Tanya Rusk stood near the counter in her navy blazer, holding a fresh file to her chest like a shield. Dr. Calvin Pierce sat at the far end in a white coat, his face composed, his hands folded in the clean, practiced way of a man used to being believed. Marcus Vale sat beneath the wall slogan patient first, always, wearing a dark suit and a sympathetic expression that looked expensive. Noah did not enter like a man who had won anything. He looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes, and the old ledger in his hand had been opened and closed so many times the corners had softened. Ben walked beside him, safe and quiet, carrying his science certificate in a plastic school folder. Marisol Grant came in behind them with her green cardigan buttoned correctly this time, the cracked red pen clipped to the front like a small badge. Nurse Evelyn Hart arrived last, carrying no folder at all, only her hospital ID and a face that said she had already seen enough to stop pretending this was routine. At the table sat an insurance representative and an outside audit officer, both called in because Noah had written the request exactly the way Evelyn told him to write it. Disputed surgical charge, conflicting location evidence, restricted portal access, request for live audit trail. Marcus rose halfway from his chair. "Mr. Brooks," he said warmly, "thank you for coming in. I know the past 48 hours have been stressful for your family." Noah placed one hand on Ben's shoulder. "Stressful is when a tire blows on the highway," he said. "This is my son's name in a surgery he never had." The room tightened, not loudly, but enough that the insurance representative stopped uncapping her pen. Marcus nodded as if Noah had said something emotional but not yet useful. "And that is exactly why we are here. Medical billing can be complex. Emergency authorizations, code conversions, and post-visit adjustments sometimes appear alarming to families who are unfamiliar with the process." Tanya looked down at her file. Dr. Pierce gave a small, regretful sigh. "I want to be clear," the doctor said. "No one here is accusing Mr. Brooks of anything. But clinical documentation does not always look the way a layperson expects it to look. That was the first retention spike, though no one in the room called it that. For a moment, it sounded like the hospital had found its safe explanation. A complicated system, a frightened father, a misunderstanding wrapped in technical language. Marcus slid a document across the table. Saint Aurelia is still willing to extend a courtesy adjustment. We can reduce the balance significantly while we complete internal review. We only ask that all parties allow the process to work without public speculation. Noah looked at the paper but did not touch it. Is there a consent form? The question was so plain it made the room slower. Marcus glanced toward Dr. Pierce. Dr. Pierce looked toward Tanya. Tanya looked toward her file. In emergency situations, Marcus said, consent procedures can vary. Noah opened his ledger and removed the first item, the original $80,000 bill. He laid it flat in the center of the table. This is the bill. Then he removed the clear bag with Ben's blue wristband inside and placed it beside the bill. Ben watched the plastic settle against the wood. He did not speak. Noah took out the printed photo he had taken before Tanya pulled the file away. This is the page my son opened by accident. It says surgery completed at 10:42. Tanya's mouth tightened. That page was not released through proper channels. Marisol's eyes moved to Tanya, but she still did not speak. Noah placed Ben's school folder on the table and turned it so the audit officer could see the certificate through the plastic. And this is where Ben was that morning. The audit officer lifted her eyes. We will need official school verification. Noah nodded. We have it. He slid out the school record, printed on district letterhead, with the time-stamped classroom photo attached. Ben stood behind his father's chair, small but steady, and pointed at the picture. That's me by the volcano poster, he said softly. Ms. Carver took it after I got my certificate. It was a child's sentence. Nothing dramatic, nothing rehearsed, but it landed harder than anger because it was exactly the size of truth a child could carry. Marcus leaned forward. Again, no one is disputing that Ben may have been at school for part of the day. The question is whether the billing record reflects a broader encounter sequence, possibly converted after review. The explanation gave him air again. A few faces shifted. Even the insurance representative looked back at the bill, as if searching for a category that might make two places at once possible. Then Noah removed the garage invoice. He did not slap it down. He set it gently beside the school record. Operating room 3, he said. Light repair. Technician. Checked in at 10:38. Room clear. No patient present. Dr. Pierce's folded hands separated for the first time. A maintenance invoice does not determine clinical care. Nurse Evelyn finally spoke.
No.
But it does determine whether a room was available. Marcus turned to her with careful surprise. Nurse Hart, I appreciate your concern, but internal records should be reviewed in the proper sequence. Evelyn did not look away. That is what Mr. Brooks requested. Marisol took one step closer to the table and set down a photocopy with a red circle around the phrase completed under emergency authorization. And this is not the first disputed account with that phrase. Tanya shifted her weight. Marisol, that is not your department. Marisol's voice stayed quiet. It used to be. The second retention spike came in a small mistake. Marcus gave a polite laugh and said, We are not here to litigate claim batch 738 in front of a hallway audience. The audit officer froze with her pen above the page. Noah looked up slowly. No one had read the batch number aloud. It was printed on the photocopy, partly covered by Marisol's hand. Tanya's eyes dropped to it too late. The glass wall reflected Marcus's face back at him, still smooth, but now a shade paler. Noah did not pounce on the mistake. He did not raise his voice. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, he said. I'm here because my son's name was put on a lie, and if I sign quietly, the next father may not find the wrong file. The audit officer closed the courtesy adjustment document and pushed it aside. Open the audit trail, she said. Marcus's smile thinned. We can provide that after internal review. Live, the auditor said. Now. The room went still enough to hear the ice shift in the water pitcher. Tanya's hand tightened around her file until the paper edges bent. Dr. Pierce glanced toward the door. Ben slipped his fingers into Noah's hand. Marisol set her cracked red pen beside the blue wristband. Nurse Evelyn moved to the wall screen and connected her badge to the terminal. The St. Aurelia logo appeared first, bright and clean, then the login box, then the file search field where she typed Ben Brooks. The final. Evidence had not appeared yet, but every person in that glass room understood that once the audit trail opened, the hospital would no longer be able to choose which clock told the truth. The search field accepted Ben Brooks's name, and for one breath the wall screen showed only a spinning circle under the St. Aurelia logo. Then the audit trail opened. No one spoke. Nurse Evelyn Hart stood beside the terminal with her badge still pressed to the reader, her shoulders squared but tense. The outside audit officer leaned forward, pen frozen above her notebook. Marcus Vale kept his face calm, but his right thumb began rubbing the edge of his cuff in a small, nervous rhythm. On the left side of the screen, Evelyn opened the school record Noah had submitted. Ben Brooks, 5th grade science showcase, certificate awarded 10:44 a.m. The classroom photo appeared beneath it. Ben standing beside a volcano poster, holding his certificate with both hands, his shy smile caught under the bright school lights. Noah felt Ben's fingers tighten around his. On the right side of the screen, Evelyn opened the hospital record. Surgery start, 10:42 a.m. Pediatric emergency surgical encounter. Barcode imported from outpatient wristband. Approval, Dr. Calvin Pierce. Financial override, Marcus Vale. The two times sat side by side, only 2 minutes apart, asking the whole room to believe a child could be in a classroom and on an operating table at the same time. The air conditioner clicked on above them, and the sound seemed too loud. A plastic cup near the water pitcher trembled from the vent. Tanya Rusk stared at the screen, her lips parted slightly, as if she had prepared for anger but not for math. Dr. Pierce cleared his throat. There may be a delayed documentation issue. His voice came out thinner than before. A chart can reflect a sequence of care that is not always visible to non-clinical personnel. Evelyn did not look at him. She clicked again. The next file opened. Operating room 3 service log. Surgical light flicker. Technician access 10:38 a.m. Room unavailable pending repair. Noah placed the garage invoice on the table without a word. The audit officer picked it up, checked the timestamp, and nodded to Evelyn. Evelyn opened the hallway camera. The screen changed to grainy footage from outside R3. The time in the corner read 10:38 a.m. A technician in a gray work shirt entered carrying a ladder and a tool bag. The door stayed propped open. No patient bed. No surgical team.
No anestesiologist. No scrub nurse.
No child. At 10:42 a.m., the technician stood under the light fixture, reaching up with both hands while the room behind him remained empty. The machine in the corner hummed. Someone in the lobby outside the glass wall coughed once and then stopped. Even the people who had been pretending not to watch were now turned fully toward the room. Noah did not smile. He did not look at Tanya to see if she was ashamed. He only looked down at Ben, whose eyes were fixed on the screen. That's the room.
Ben whispered.
Noah squeezed his hand. That's the room they wrote your name into. Marisol Grant stepped forward with her cracked red pen in her hand. Her voice was quiet, but the microphone on the conference table caught it. A real surgery leaves more than charges. Evelyn opened the missing clinical record fields one by one. No anesthesia record.
No scrub nurse signature.
No tray count. No recovery transfer.
No post-op vitals.
Each empty field appeared like a door opening onto nothing. Dr. Pierce shifted in his chair. The clean confidence of his folded hands was gone. One hand had moved to his coat pocket, then stopped when the audit officer looked at him. Dr. Pierce, the auditor said, were you physically present at St. Aurelia at 10:42 a.m.? Pierce swallowed. I would need to review my schedule. Evelyn clicked again. A public conference listing appeared. Dr. Calvin Pierce, keynote speaker, Downtown Medical Ethics Forum, 11 a.m. Beside it was a time-stamped parking validation from the conference center, submitted by his own office for reimbursement. Check-in, 10:29 a.m. The white coat suddenly looked less like authority and more like fabric. Marcus leaned forward. This is being taken out of context. The words had barely left his mouth when Marisol set another page on the table. Her red pen had circled a line from an internal email. Keep emergency authorization in context until audit season passes.
Sender, Marcus Vale.
The room did not explode. It emptied itself of sound. Tanya's file slid from her hands and struck the carpet with a soft, dull slap. Dr. Pierce stared at the email as if it belonged to someone else's life. Marcus's face stayed still, but the color had drained from beneath his eyes. Behind the glass, the billing counter had gone quiet. A woman holding a toddler covered her mouth. Lila, the mother in the red coat, stood near the doorway with her daughter's wheelchair, tears running silently down her face because she had just seen the same phrase that had trapped her child's insurance. Marisol placed a second stack beside the first. 27 disputed accounts in 6 months, she said. All low-income families. All converted after outpatient visits. All marked completed under emergency authorization. All challenged. All pressured into collection or courtesy settlement. The auditor did not ask if Marisol was sure. She began reading. Batch numbers. Initials. Repeated language. The same 3 extra digits attached to encounter codes like a hidden hook. Noah slowly reached into his pocket and removed the clear bag with Ben's blue wristband. He set it beneath the screen, directly under the barcode line in the audit trail. The cheap plastic band looked small against all that power, almost ridiculous, but no one laughed. Ben looked at it, then at the photo of himself in school, then at the men and women who had written another story over his body. His voice was barely above a breath. Dad, they wrote my name on something I didn't do. Noah closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, he was looking at Marcus, but he spoke to the whole room. Then take his name out of the lie. The audit officer stood. Her chair legs made a sharp sound on the floor, and everyone flinched as if the room had forgotten what noise was. Seal the billing access for these claim batches, she said. Suspend external collection activity immediately. Preserve all audit logs, emails, camera footage, and approval records. This is being referred for fraud review. Marcus pushed back from the table. I think we should pause before making accusations. He reached for his phone. The security guard at the conference door stepped in front of him, not touching him, simply standing where Noah had once been made to feel dangerous. That was when the power truly changed sides. Not with shouting, not with a fist, with a guard blocking the man in the suit while the father in the oil-stained jacket stood still beside his son. Marisol's hand shook as she capped the red pen. Evelyn exhaled like she had been holding her breath for years. Tanya bent to pick up her file, but her fingers fumbled with the pages, and she left one sheet on the floor. No one rushed to help her. Noah picked up the blue wristband and placed it back in the clear bag. He looked at Ben, then at Lila, then through the glass at the families who were beginning to understand that their private shame might have been someone else's system. The truth had finally entered the room with paperwork of its own. Now Noah had to decide whether to let it end with his son's cleared name, or use it to open every file they had hoped tired people would never read. The glass conference room did not empty all at once. People left slowly, as if sudden movement might break whatever truth had finally settled over them. The audit officer stayed at the table, speaking into her phone in a low, official voice, using words that sounded less dramatic than the damage they carried. Preserve records, suspend access, fraud review, collection hold reversal. Marcus Vale sat with his hands flat on the polished wood, no longer trying to leave, no longer looking at Noah. Dr. Calvin Pierce had taken off his white coat without seeming to realize it, folding it once across his arm like a man putting away a costume. Tanya Rusk stood near the door, pale and quiet, while the same security guard who had once moved toward Noah now stood between Marcus and the hallway. No one clapped. No one cheered. The silence was not empty. It was full of people understanding that a hospital bill had nearly rewritten a child's life. Ben leaned against Noah's side, still holding the folder with his science certificate. Noah could feel the boy's breathing begin to settle. That mattered more than anything on the table. Nurse Evelyn printed the first correction notice before the meeting ended. The machine in the corner hummed, pulled in a blank sheet, and pushed out a page that looked ordinary until Noah read the first line. Surgical encounter disputed and suspended pending fraud investigation. Then another page came. Insurance hold lifted. Then another. Collection activity halted. The papers were still warm when Evelyn placed them in front of Noah. "This is not the final correction," she said. Her voice was tired, but clear. "But it protects Ben while the full review happens." Noah looked at the words, then at Ben. "You hear that?"
Ben nodded.
"My medicine? Your medicine." For the first time that day, the child's shoulders dropped. Not all the way. Fear did not leave a room just because adults finally found paperwork. But it loosened its grip. Lila, the mother in the red coat, stood near the doorway with her daughter's wheelchair. Her little girl rolled one wheel forward, then stopped shyly beside Ben. Lila did not say much. She only pressed both hands around Noah's for 1 second and whispered, "You didn't stop with your boy." Noah did not know how to answer that without making it sound bigger than it was. So he said the only thing that felt true. "Someone should have stopped it before all our kids." Marisol heard him. She stood by the table with the cracked red pen in her hand, her green cardigan sleeve pushed up, her file keys resting against her hip. For years, people had seen her as the old records woman who moved slowly and guarded paper no one wanted to read. Now the audit officer was asking her where the inactive files were stored, who had access to batch approvals, and how many claims carried the same language. Marisol answered each question carefully. She did not look triumphant. She looked like a person being handed back a voice she had kept alive in private. Before Noah left, Tanya stepped toward him at the billing counter. That was the place where the red stamp had fallen, where Ben had hidden his wristband under his sleeve, where strangers had looked at Noah like poverty was a confession. Tanya's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "Mr. Brooks," she said, and the professional smoothness was gone from her voice. "I am required to apologize for how your dispute was handled." Noah looked at her for a moment. Behind her, the counter glass reflected his denim jacket, the oil at the cuffs, the old ledger under his arm. He could have made her say more. He could have named every word she had thrown into the room and made her stand inside it. But Ben was beside him, watching how a man acts when the truth is finally on his side. Noah said, "Next time a father asks for proof, don't make his child watch you call him a liar." Tanya lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir." It was enough. Not because it erased anything, but because dignity did not need to become cruelty to prove it had survived. 2 weeks later, the first official letters arrived. Ben's medical file was corrected in writing. The false surgical encounter was removed from active treatment history. The collection notice was withdrawn before it reached Noah's credit. Lila's daughter's account was reopened. Then more letters came to families Noah had never met, families who had been ashamed in kitchens, parking lots, and church basements because a computer system with human hands behind it had told them they owed money for care that never happened. Marcus Vale was removed from financial access during the investigation. Dr. Pierce's approvals were suspended pending review by the medical board. St. Aurelia announced an outside audit, a separation between clinical approval and financial override, and a new patient billing advocacy office led by Marisol Grant. The announcement used clean words. Noah knew the dirt underneath them. On the first Thursday evening after his shift, Noah opened the garage bay door after hours. The air smelled of rubber, motor oil, and cooling engines. Mr. Alvarez let him use the side office. Marisol came with a cardboard box of blank dispute forms and her red pen. Evelyn came after work with a stack of patient rights handouts. Noah put Ben's blue wristband in a small frame beside the science certificate, not to scare his son, not to keep the pain alive, but to remind tired people that small things can tell the truth when powerful people hope no one looks closely. Under the frame, Ben taped a handwritten sign, "Thursday night free bill review." The letters tilted upward at the end, hopeful without trying to be. Families began arriving before sunset. a janitor with a knee brace, a bus driver still in uniform, a grandmother with 3 envelopes tied in a rubber band. Noah did not pretend to be a lawyer. He did not promise miracles. He opened each bill the way he opened an engine, slowly, respectfully, looking for the part that did not belong. Sometimes the answer was simple. Sometimes it was not. But no one at that folding table was made to feel stupid for asking. Near closing, Ben sat on the workbench swinging his feet, watching his father circle a line item for an old man who kept apologizing for not understanding the form. "Dad," Ben said later, when the last family had gone and the garage was quiet except for the ticking of cooling metal, "are we still afraid of hospitals?" Noah wiped his hands on the same gray rag he had carried for years. He looked at the framed wristband in the office window, at Marisol's red pen lying beside it, at his son's certificate catching the yellow light. "A little," he said, "but fear doesn't get to sign your name." Ben thought about that, then leaned his head against his father's arm. Noah did not move. The garage settled around them in a silence different from the one in the conference room. This silence did not come from shock. It came from relief, from respect, from the quiet knowledge that one child's name had been returned clean and that other doors would open because a tired father had refused to answer a lie with hatred. Outside, the hospital lights glowed across town, bright and distant, but in the small garage window, the blue wristband shone softer than any sign of power, reminding everyone who saw it that dignity does not need to shout. Sometimes it only needs to keep the receipt, protect the child, and wait for truth to find its way into the light.